Tecmo Bowl was released on the NES in February of 1989. It's a home port of an arcade release of this game that came out in 1987. Tecmo Bowl was the first console game ever to feature real NFL players in the game, although Tecmo was unable to license the actual team names, so cities are used in their place. Compared to many other football games of this era, the game plays way faster and overall is way more fun. The game's plot is centered around the Denver Broncos and their quest to become the greatest football team in the NFL.
Tecmo Bowl doesn't have a plot.
Wait, no? There's no plot in this game? Okay. Well, since it's more of an arcade-style sports game, there really is no plot to be seen. Tecmo Bowl features 3 modes, 1-player, 2-player, and coach. The 1-player mode is handled kind of like a football season, although it's not called that. Upon the end of each game, the computer will pick another team and you'll continue to play through all the teams in the game. 2-player is a versus mode, and coach mode is a mode where you choose the plays and just watch what happens with no control of the actual game. The game has 12 NFL teams, each with a playbook that consists of only 4 plays, which makes the game fairly simple and easy to pick up without any real knowledge of the actual sport. The 4 plays consist of 2 passing and 2 running plays, with the exception of San Francisco and Miami, both of which have 3 passing plays. While playing defense, it's your job to guess which play the offense chooses. If you choose the same one as they do, their play will collapse and it'll usually result in a quarterback sack. The teams in this game are loosely based on the 1988 football season, and the stats of the players on each team are assigned accordingly. Because of this, there are varying levels of effectiveness of each team. Chicago and San Francisco tend to be the 2 best teams because their offense and defense teams have the best stats in the game, while Minnesota is the worst team because of its poor playbook and ineffective team. The game does have some quirks to it. For instance, by standing in front of someone that's receiving a pass, they will intercept the pass almost 100% of the time. In addition, some of the players on certain teams, for instance Lawrence Taylor of New York or Dexter Manley of Washington, can block any field goal by being in front of the kicker. Some of the teams are also fairly unbalanced, like San Francisco and Miami, both of which have pass plays that are pretty much unstoppable with any defensive play. The gameplay for Tecmo Bowl is spot on. It's probably the funnest football game ever released, and it's a blast to play every time, whether you're playing single player or multiplayer. The game simulates football as loosely as I'd like it to, and it really has a great arcadey action feel to it that you don't see with many other sports titles, especially football ones. Graphically, the game looks as good as it needs to. It gets the point across, but by no means looks great. The game has some decent sprite flickering happening when there's a lot of action happening or all the players on the team are running, however, it's nowhere near as bad as games like Super Dodgeball. The music, despite having fairly short tracks, is really good. The shortness of the music is hard to notice though, because between plays, it'll only play for a few seconds while the play is going on. The audio in the game adds a lot to the action of the game and is an awesome part of the game. 2 years after the release of Tecmo Bowl in late 1991, a sequel to the game came out named Tecmo Super Bowl. Tecmo Super Bowl was able to obtain the NFL license, so it was able to use both the NFL teams and NFL players' names of the time. Rather than having only 12 teams, Tecmo Super Bowl was able to have all 28 teams at the time, as well as expanded rosters, playbooks, and stat tracking. The playbooks in Tecmo Super Bowl allow you to choose from 8 plays rather than 4, and you're also able to edit the playbooks. Tecmo Super Bowl also added in several new game modes, which included a preseason game, the ability to go through the 1991 season and season game, and Pro Bowl mode. While the gameplay remained, for the most part, the same between the 2 games, there were several tweaks that Tecmo Super Bowl made to improve the game. These features would include a coin toss, fumbles, timeouts, player health conditions as well as injuries, and 5-minute quarters instead of the short minute and 30-second quarters of the first game. Another small but noticeable difference between the 2 games is the way a field goal is kicked. Rather than choosing the power of the kick like in Tecmo Bowl, you aim it using a little arrow that bounces back and forth in Tecmo Super Bowl. Tecmo Super Bowl really takes the original formula of Tecmo Bowl to the next level and is a really amazing package on the NES. Between the 2 games though, I usually find myself reaching for the original just because it's the game I spent more time with as a kid. But if you're looking to get into these games, Tecmo Super Bowl is the better game between the 2 of them. Overall, the Tecmo football games on the NES are among the best sports games ever made, and also some of the funnest games on the NES. Whenever you walk into a retro game store, you usually find sports games lining all the bins of old games. However, Tecmo Bowl games are the exception. They balance arcadey fun with football so well that they're fairly sought after NES games. Even if you don't like football games, it's worth giving the Tecmo Bowl games a try because they really are a gem on the NES.